Hello and welcome back to another episode of a week-like ramble. Oh my god, now I'm saying it the wrong way around. If you haven't been watching my roguelike rambles, I keep accidentally calling them weekly waypoints, and now I'm doing it the opposite. God damn it. Today we are playing World of Warcraft Dragonflight, although there's nothing particularly dragony about it, because I'm leveling an alt I've decided, after having made him and not touched him years and years ago, to finally level my damn Mechanome. This is Kaisel. He is a marksmanship hunter, and he is going to profoundly piss off the tank by doing absolutely nothing wrong throughout the course of this dungeon. Enjoy keeping an eye on the chat if you want to see what that's about. Basically, he's convinced that my pet is taunting when literally my pet doesn't have that ability. I found it very funny that the first dungeon I loaded into was for Gnomeregan. I would have been able to do that better, but I've got a very stuffy nose today. But yeah, I don't typically like gnomes, famously kind of hate them. But mechanomes, I guess, are kind of cool because they're like little robot dudes, and hey, you can throw in a fun Ratchet & Clank reference with your naming convention, can't you? One of the reasons why I'm leveling this hunter now as well is because I already have a marksmanship hunter. She's my Dark Ranger, and I think it's interesting that they're doing this hero talent system because it kind of adds sub-specs instead of just specs, so there's kind of more of a reason to have multiple characters of the same spec, because instead of sending this guy down the Dark Ranger path, I'll send him down whatever the other path is. So, sorry, for those of you who do not keep tabs on World of Warcraft and do not care about this game, basically, it's one of the upcoming features they've announced for the next expansion, and I'm pretty excited about it. In fact, I'm so excited about the next expansion that after one of my most extended stays away from World of Warcraft, I have now obviously resubbed and I'm playing again. And what I find really interesting is when I last stopped playing, I remember being like, I don't know if I can play Balanced Druid anymore because I find Balanced Druid rotation really boring. Like, Balanced Druid has always been my main. I've always tried to stick to a single main character throughout all of the expansions, and that is that guy. But I just found myself being so bored by the combat. But when I came back, I continued the 10.1 storyline, which is what I was doing. I left at the very start of 10.1. In fact, I barely checked out 10.1, really. I mostly left after 10.0. And we are talking strictly retail WoW here. I have dabbled with Classic. But anyway, as I was working my way through the 10.1 storyline on my Balanced Druid, I was loving it. I was like, the Balanced Druid rotation is so fun. There are so many things I can do. I'm having such a great time with it. I must have just been so burned out on retail World of Warcraft that I found this boring. So yeah, I'm back on the WoW train, everyone. If you would like to hear me talk more about the upcoming expansion and my thoughts on it and my thoughts on BlizzCon, I do have a video called I Underestimated Chris Metzen, which should give you some idea as to my opinions on the entire situation. Of course, people like to make fun of World of Warcraft players for constantly like berating their game for being shit and saying how much they hate it and being out, and then they announce the next World of Warcraft expansion and suddenly everyone's back in and it's just this endless cycle. I'm not saying that I'm not one of those people, but at the same time, I don't think I've ever said I'm permanently quitting WoW. The closest I came was Dragonflight when I said I don't know if I find this game fun anymore. But the last few days have taught me that I was just burnt out and needed a slightly longer break than I normally take from this game, I think. And of course, I don't know how long this is going to last. I could get into, because 10.2 comes out this week, I could get into a week or two of 10.2 and find myself right back where I started and just immediately quit the game again. But I don't foresee that happening. I think maybe, if I remember right, the reason why I didn't really touch 10.1 after the first few times I opened the game is because at the same time there was a new patch in Final Fantasy XIV, and I was super deep into Final Fantasy XIV at that point. I don't think these are two games that you can really play side by side. I think your brain makes subconscious comparisons and it kind of diminishes the experience of one or the other depending on which you're preferring at the time. This time I haven't touched Final Fantasy XIV in a few patches, and I don't really intend to, maybe until just before the next expansion launches when I'll go and get caught up on the MSQ. Another reason, frankly, I was staying away from WoW was because I have lots of footage of Dragonflight from me leveling through it and then losing love for the game and then having that, I joke about calling it like an MMO existential crisis about why I'm not enjoying the game. And I just didn't want to go through and edit all of that into a video. And then I had the epiphany of, well, don't! So, Volume 4 is going to be a bit of a time skip from Volume 3, but I will address that at the start of the video. Also, something I mentioned on Twitter before BlizzCon, I believe, was that I was feeling a WoW itch. It's one of the reasons why I went and checked out EverQuest 2, and I do still want to continue checking out EverQuest 2, by the way. But it wasn't an itch for new content. I literally just wanted to resub to the game to level alts and to run transmog runs and like pet collection and mount collection runs in old raids. And honestly, when there is new content out there, it is hard to just ignore it and go and do these things. It might sound silly if you haven't played World of Warcraft, but I do have this weird, like, I'm not drawn to the new stuff, but I do have fear of missing out on it because of the way patch cycles work. But after doing the bare minimum of like the 10.1 stuff and like I think it's pretty much just the intro quest line. I think I've got like multiple shielded quest icons to go and check out, and basically that just means like main quest lines, quote unquote, like important quest lines to go and do. I still have all of that to go and do on my main, but honestly, I was just like, I'm just gonna let myself ignore that for now. And I enjoyed, by the way, the intro to Zaralek and 10.1. But I said to myself, I'm going to ignore that for now and then just go and fucking level my alts. And so, yeah, like I said, I decided to go and jump into Kaisel and just run dungeons. And oh my god, I needed this. There is something so zen and so fulfilling about just face rolling a bunch of old dungeons on a new character. I needed it. With a sheer amount of races and classes and race class combos and customization features that are in WoW now, for someone like me who enjoys like creating new characters and coming up with backstories for them and general kind of like characteristics of what they would be like as a character, this is a goldmine for me. There is still so much for me to do in that sense, and one of the features of the next expansion is warbands. And one of the lesser features of warbands is they're changing the character select screen so that there's a little campfire and you can select 4 of your characters to sit around that campfire at once. And that might sound incredibly minor to anyone who doesn't play World of Warcraft, but to me that is crack. That is like, oh, I need to have 4 max level characters with awesome transmog now so that they are sitting there and looking at me whenever I log in. And I want there to be like, I don't think there will be, but I want them to add like a feature where you can set like login screen loadouts, and like you don't know which set you're gonna get when you log in, see which characters are sitting around a campfire, like, you know. Man, I'm all in. And yeah, the World Soul Saga and the new expansion and all of that new stuff will be fun as well, of course. But right now, I just want to fill out my roster of World of Warcraft characters, and I'm getting to the point where there are still a few classes I haven't leveled to a max level. Off the top of my head, I think it's just Priest, Shaman, and I'm talking like historically as well. Most of my classes aren't max level at this point because I find the 10 level stretch of leveling an alt through the newest expansion to be the most dull, boring thing you can do in WoW. I love leveling alts up to that point, and then I hate leveling alts. So that's kind of what I do nowadays. I just level them up to, like, at this point it would be level 60, and then I just leave them there, and that's fine, because then they can run a bunch of old content and get lots of transmog and stuff, and they're only one expansion behind in terms of power of being able to do that. Anyway, classes I haven't leveled to max, Priest, Shaman, and Rogue, I think, are the only ones. But what I was saying is I'm getting to the point where I am literally leveling specs I have leveled before. I have leveled Marksmanship Hunter before, I believe, or at least I've played with it at max level for a bit. Character boosts are so, like, antithetical to what I enjoy about this game, by the way. Every time I use a character boost, like the free one you get from pre-ordering the next expansion, I almost never touch the character that I actually boost. I find them so devalued, because then it's just the endgame experience, and the only place where I really enjoy the endgame experience is on my main character. But yeah, if you could not tell, very happy to be back in World of Warcraft, but that's not all I'm here to talk about today. What else am I here to talk about today? Let me think. I've been watching through Torchwood. So you know how this is Doctor Who month, and I've been, if you follow me on Twitter, I've been very vocal about my excitement for Doctor Who month and how they've put all of the old Doctor Who stuff and all the spin-off Doctor Who stuff on iPlayer. I was looking through that stuff and I saw Torchwood and I thought, you know what? I should watch Torchwood. I've never seen Torchwood because when it came out, I was very young and the subject matter was very adult. And contrary to popular belief about, like teenage boys and stuff, I didn't really have a lot of interest in seeing the super adult stuff as early as possible. I knew it was super adult. I went, oh, I'll watch that when I'm older, pretty much. Anyway, I'm not going to go too far into it because I'm going to have more specific thoughts on video of Series 1 coming out this Thursday. But I am watching through Torchwood and I'm addicted to it and I'm having a wonderful time, and I'm near the start of Season 2 at the minute. Series 2, sorry, I keep getting those mixed up. People hate it when you do that. As you may have seen on the channel as well, I have also slowly started to continue my watch through of classic Doctor Who. Actually, that's something I can talk about here. So obviously, I put up the thoughts per episode for, Reign of Terror, that's the name I'm stalling on. But I actually watched another classic Who adventure because of Tales of a TARDIS. If you don't know what Tales of a TARDIS is, it is basically a reframing of a classic serial with modern scenes put in, and it's really hard to explain, but it's like, so for instance, the first episode is the Fifth Doctor and Tegan, but obviously they're older now. But how can the Fifth Doctor be there? He regenerated, he never got old. So that's kind of part of a mystery of the show. And while I was on the fence about watching it and I'm still kind of on the fence about watching through it, because I want to experience the classic Who episodes in order as I'm going through them, my curiosity got the better of me, and I did watch that first episode with Peter Davison's Doctor, Earthshock, and it is basically just Earthshock, but probably edited down a little bit. It's like the entire episode, including the modern scenes, is 89 minutes long, and I think that is shorter than what 6 25-minute episodes would be. That is much shorter, actually, now that I think about it. So it's an edited down version of that, but it's also got these new scenes in, and so I just watched through it. I was like, sod it, I'm not going to get too in my own head about, watching things in a particular order and making content around it. I'm just going to watch it, and I did, and I will make a thoughts per episode on the actual Earthshock serial when I get to it, but I really enjoyed it. It was a fun just like preview of what's to come in terms of classic Who, and it really I'm glad I watched it because it's motivated me to continue watching through some of those rougher earlier episodes from the 60s. And I call them rougher, but I do enjoy them as well, otherwise I wouldn't be bothering. I know I could just skip ahead a few Doctors. But I'm torn on whether to continue watching Tales of a TARDIS because they go back earlier, and I don't know how I'm going to approach making a thoughts per episode for a serial that I've already seen in a Tales of a TARDIS. So currently, my current way of thinking is to keep that in mind, and when I get to the serial, that should be, in my watching order. Instead, I watched a Tales of a TARDIS episode. But then my question is, what if Tales of a TARDIS has a meta-narrative going through it, which won't make sense if I watch those out of order? So, yeah, basically, it's a whole thing. I don't really know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm pretty sure I've landed on I'm just going to watch the Tales of a TARDIS version when I get to that particular serial. Anyway, there you go, a very tight and focused weekly Waypoint today. There was originally going to be more to it, but it was just filler, so I cut that out for you. If you liked this video, feel free to leave a like on it. It will help me with my brain tingling feelings, by which I mean serotonin. I should really stop being weird about it. And subscribe for more weekly episodes till the day I die. That's not a promise. I will stop making this series one day, but that day is not today. As you could tell, slightly more cheerful this week, so actually quite a bit more cheerful this week. So yeah, I hope you feel good too, dear viewer. I hope your week is going well. I will see you in the next one.